The benefits and dangers of being vulnerable in the pulpit. I'll start with the dangers. I think that one danger of vulnerability could be a sense of excusing or at least appearing to excuse sin. And so sometimes what we can do is to stand up and say, well, here's where I particularly struggle, and this is just who I am, and this is just how I'm made, in the sense of, well, we're all in this together, and none of us can keep God's standards of holiness, and so let's reassure one another with that. I think that's a real danger. Another danger is that sometimes when we're preaching and teaching and we're showing vulnerability, often we show just a small part of vulnerability for entirely reasonable purposes. You don't want the people in your congregation to think that you're falling apart, or you don't want to talk about something that maybe would be inappropriate to talk about in front of a large group of people. But because we then choose just these particular aspects to talk about, that can be really discouraging to people who say, well, this guy is really grappling with this sort of mild depression, or with this sort of controllable temper, or whatever it is that the preacher is choosing to share. But he's not talking about these really, really serious and scandalous things that maybe this person is dealing with out in the congregation. And the assumption can then be made, well, God's grace is there for the sorts of sins that the pastor or the leader faces, and God's grace is there for the sorts of brokenness and difficulty faced by the pastor and leader, but not for those who are in a more serious situation. And so I think anytime that you're expressing vulnerability, you have to also speak and address in a broader sense than what it is that you're grappling with at the moment. In terms of the benefits of this, I think the benefit is that you are communicating to your people that the gospel is not coming from you to them. The gospel is coming from the Lord Jesus to you and to them. And I think one of the most dangerous implicit messages that we can ever give to our church or to the outside world is the idea that Jesus came for the well and not for the sick. Rather than standing up and saying, I'm standing in front of you not as a religious expert, I'm standing in front of you not as someone who stands before God in terms of my own morality and my own togetherness, but I with you am a sinner crucified with Christ, and I with you am being sanctified, and I'm being sanctified often through very difficult thorns in the flesh and through very difficult crosses that I'm carrying. And so when I talk about that, what I'm really saying is the gospel's true. And the gospel's true for me, and the gospel's true for you.